George Carmi here from Full Press Coverage Washington, and thank you guys for joining us for our first ever Full Press Coverage podcast. Let's get it. All right, guys, welcome to our Full Press Coverage Washington podcast. I know time is very precious for everybody, so thank you for giving us your time and joining in with me and Trevor and Tony as we get going with our first ever FPC Washington podcast. So, guys, as I mentioned before, it's our first ever attempt doing this. All three of us have been working behind the scenes and running for FPC Washington for a little while now. And it's our biggest passion. And as I mentioned, you guys are going to be joining us from time to time and giving us your time to listen to us. So what I wanted to do is kind of pass around the mic to introduce ourselves and kind of tell you how we became a Washington football fan. And then we're going to dive into last week's preseason game and preview the next one. So I'm going to pass it over to Trevor. So, Trevor, you got the mic.
What's up, everybody? Trevor Stores here, content contributor for Full Press Coverage Washington. I'm a diehard fan, as you can probably already tell. It started when I was really, really little. Don't know the exact age. My grandmother was a huge Washington football team fan. I remember growing up as a little kid, I had a Mark Rippon jersey. It just went from there. As I got older, started paying attention to the game more, to the organization more, and here I am, crazy about the Washington football team.
There you go, Trevor. All right, Tony, you're up.
Hi, guys. How's it going? My name is Tony Wheat. I'm originally from England. I live now in Ireland, just outside of Dublin, so pretty cool place. I've been a Washington fan now for nearly 40 years. I started off in the early 80s. A friend of my dad's brought back a pennant from a holiday, which was around the time the NFL started being shown in the UK. Washington were one of the top teams back in the day, hopefully back soon. And so it started from there. I don't remember the first Super Bowl win. I remember the defeat to the Raiders the following year. And I thankfully remember the two Super Bowl wins in the late 80s and early 90s. So some happy memories there. And there's been a lot of ups and downs ever since, but sticking loyal to the guys, and I think we're on the right track.
I agree, Tony. Now, guys, I definitely love. I've worked with Tony for a couple of years now. I love that interesting international perspective from him, and basically what he shares of being a Washington fan overseas, which is fantastic. So, guys, I'm George Carmi. You guys may have seen some of my writing on Twitter. I was born and raised in the DMV. I'm actually from Rockville, Maryland. Basically, I was born and bred a Washington football fan, a Washington Redskins fan, to be honest. And luckily, I had two older brothers that kind of embedded it in me as soon as I was born. You can find baby pictures of me wearing Washington football gear. And I think it stems a lot from my mom, believe it or not. Like, people usually have their dad that basically kind of coaches them and brings them into being a fan. My parents immigrated to America in the 1970s, 1974. And I think my parents just wanted to kind of become American and kind of like be part of the culture. And, at that time, this is like when they were peaking, and the Washington was like becoming a dominant team. And I was like, you know what, like Sunday in America was revolved around the Washington Redskins and winning football games. And I think my mom just loved it, and she kind of taught me to love it. And just so funny because, she'll call me now and she'll be like, oh man, Dwayne Haskins sucks. And it's just a 75-year-old woman is kind of calling me and talking to me about the Washington football team. And it's just it's a beautiful thing. And it's like, you know what, like, that's what I love about football. Like, I've played football my whole life, and this fandom in general, it's like it spurs all races and creeds and values. And I think it unites people. So that's why I love sports. And that's why I wanted to be a sports journalist growing up. So this is kind of pursuing my passion with podcasts and writing. So once again, thank you for your time, guys. I'm happy you guys are here.
Of course.
Great stuff.
Let's do it. So, guys, what I want to do is I basically want to reflect on last week. Tomorrow we have our first, our second preseason game against the Cincinnati Bengals. And we had a loss last week to the New England Patriots. Tony, I'm going to start off with you. What were some major takeaways from last week's performance, and how would you rate the performance of Ryan Fitzpatrick and Taylor Heineke?
Yeah, I mean, I thought for a first preseason game, it was a pretty solid effort. Obviously, the main guys didn't play too much, but from what we saw of them, I thought the offense clicked reasonably well early on. I thought Fitz took control pretty well, opening couple of drives, couple of nice throws. Defense started strongly, and obviously the strip sack that wasn't from Chase Young, which
Very
we can
controversial.
debate. Yeah, I don't know. You could argue either way, I guess. But so I thought it was a solid start. There was I don't think anybody jumped off the page particularly. To be honest with you, after years and years of preseason, for me, getting through the preseason with no injuries is the main thing. So from that perspective, that's a solid start. A couple of guys showed up. I mean, Jarrett Patterson showed up quite nicely. I think he had 14 touches with he had 10 or so carries and about 4 receptions. So he made a solid impression. So yeah, I thought as a first game, I think in preseason, obviously the result isn't the be all and end all by any means. Even guys like Steven Montez showed through in the second half. His first game action. I mean, there was no preseason for the guy last year. So, look, obviously we don't show too much of the hand in preseason, so it's fairly basic stuff that we were putting out there. But no, I thought there was some encouraging signs.
I agree, Tony. I definitely think, as you mentioned, the outcome of the game isn't necessarily the big crux of what we're trying to see from the team. I think you definitely want to see growth. And as you mentioned, injuries were definitely walking away without any major injuries is a definitely big win for Washington. So, Trevor, what are your thoughts?
I'm kind of piggybacking off of Tony here. First team offense for a quarterback to come in for his first year under our offensive system. He looked like he's been there for at least 2 years, 3 years, and that's just preseason. First team defense looks like they can do nothing but get better. Ioannidis is coming back. Tim Settle's there. I mean, it's gonna be nice. I'm gonna piggyback on Steven Montez too as well. Tony, he didn't have any preseason action last year. He actually took command of the offense once he got settled in and comfortable. He actually surprised me a little bit more than what I thought he was going to do. And I guess for Taylor Heinicke, I didn't really see anything impressive from him. He didn't wow me. He just showed me that he can be a backup quarterback in the league. And if something were to happen and his name were to be called, I think would be okay. But other than that, I didn't. Yeah, I wasn't wowed like you, Tony. So solid first preseason game, not bad.
Yeah, I think you guys pretty much nailed it. I'm kind of in the same ballpark as you. I think walking away from the game, I felt like I don't know if I'm overreacting, but I feel like our defense definitely. I mean, we're expecting a lot from our defense this year, but I felt like kind of tackling was an issue earlier in the game. I don't know if you guys caught that at all. I know I was catching some podcasts.
Yeah, Bostic missed a couple.
Exactly, right? Bostic missed a couple. And I just think, I've been hearing podcasts and radios and things of that nature that it's just because they aren't practicing tackling in the game, per NFLPA rules, during practice, per NFLPA rules. They just kind of want to protect your bodies and be safe. But you could tell they're definitely a little bit rusty in regard to that. And for me, the biggest takeaway was that quarterback battle. I know all off season long, it was okay. Can Taylor Heinicke supplant Ryan Fitzpatrick? Can he be that QB1? Can he be that diamond in the rough superstar? I didn't necessarily see that. I see Trevor shaking his head. I agree with you, man. I think I think he solidified himself as a standard solid QB2, maybe something you can kind of invest in as a backup moving forward. But he didn't really pop for me. I felt like he was too reliant on getting out of the pocket, and there were a lot of dump offs. I think he was. I'm gonna check my notes. He was 9 for 15 for passing for 86 yards, which is a 5.7 yards per attempt. And guys, that's below what Dwayne Haskins and Alex Smith did last year. I think Alex Smith had 6.0 and Alex Smith had 6.2 and Dwayne Haskins had 6.0. And as you guys know, it's pretty dry and vanilla offense last year, very, very boring. So that's what's the future is to come for Heinicke. I'm not particularly excited about that. So it's kind of so that's not really my thing there.
No, I thought Heinicke. I agree. I agree entirely with both of you. I thought that Heinicke was okay. I think a lot of people had mentioned how call him a gamer or whatever, that he's better in game situations than in practice, where he's been tossing interceptions left, right, and center. But by the same token, I think when the play breaks down, he can use his improvisation. But I think there's only so long you can kind of get away with that unless you really are an elite level talent. And I don't think he is an elite level talent. And I'll be actually very interested to see what happens if and when Kyle Allen is fully healthy, I believe he's going to play against Cincinnati. I don't think it's a nailed on deal yet that Heineke's going to be the backup, but I don't know, maybe.
I agree to that, and I think
me too.
Yeah, and I think, Taylor Heineke, I think, there's potential there. There's potential for a solid backup role, but I don't see him projecting as like our quarterback of the future. And I know some people have considered that. And for me, it's like, you know what? Like he has there's limited upside there, right? He's going to be 29 next year. He's a little bit smaller. He's injury prone. Why invest so much in him where you could easily just invest in the draft next year and have someone with more physical tools and faster and quicker and better processing? So I don't see Heineke as a long-term solution. So it's one of my stock downs from last week. I don't know if you guys seem to agree with me on that, right?
Yeah, because I mean, also, and to real quick add to that, if Tampa Bay was given a little bit more time to study Taylor Heineke, the outcome probably would have been a little more different than what it was.
Absolutely.
No shade to us the way we played. We played great. Defense was great, but they didn't know who Taylor Heineke was. We didn't even know who he was going to be like in game time situations. So
I think it was the blessing. I think it was a perfect storm. I think it was a perfect storm, right? It was like, our backs were on the ropes. It was a very dramatic season. Our coach had overcome cancer. Alex Smith is stumbling along on one leg. And here comes this college student, just fresh off the dorm bed, just walking into Ashburn and basically, leading against Tom Brady. And it was a beautiful thing, and I'm never going to forget it. But I just don't think – I think that's the end of the story, unfortunately.
Yes.
And, life.
It was a great story. It was a great story. And the problem is, in the world we live in now, people love a small sample size and they get very excited about one performance. And look, the guy was I don't think he was even starting, was he, in the XFL, and he's been around the league for 3 or 4 years. 32 teams have had the chance to pick him up on more than one occasion. So
in Carolina with Rivera, he's a Rivera guy.
Yeah,
so you're right.
So look, he is what he is, and that's not
QB1.
Yeah, it's not a knock on him. He is what he is. I think that's pretty much the answer over there. All right. So speaking of stock down, so there were like my boy Trevor. I love Trevor. He's my guy, right? But he was harping pretty hard on this one guy that I love. Honestly, I think he has unlimited potential. But Trevor Stores is like he closed the door on this guy already. It's like it's done deal. We got to move past and look at some other things. In my opinion, I'm saying, all right, Trevor. I'm gonna give you the opportunity to explain yourself. So. There was some criticism for first-round pick Jamin Davis, and some of the harshest criticism has been from my man Trevor Stores. So here's a platform here. Tell me, let's talk about explain yourself, sir. So what's going on with Jamin Davis? Like, why are you down on him? Give me some honest criticism. I want to hear from you. Let's go.
All right. When he got drafted, didn't know who the hell he was, to be honest. Okay. Second, he started 10 games in college and like 1 full year or whatever. Okay, cool. We have the top 20 pick in the draft, okay? He is good. I'm not saying he's not. But if he's somebody that you wanted to draft and develop and is going to kind of move along in a new role, why did we waste a top 20 pick on a player like that when we could have maybe gotten somebody who can contribute now since we're in that win now mentality? I'm not saying I don't trust Ron Rivera, Jack Del Rio, but it's just the way that they're progressing him and giving him all this different stuff to causing him to look lost in the field, and he's our top 20 pick. He looks like he has no idea what he's supposed to do out there. And I know it's preseason, but we don't have time to wait in the regular season for him to get better because our linebacking group is not that great. Like if he can't handle it and we take him out and put somebody else, our depth is trash. So I just think that maybe we should adapt to his skill set right now to get him acclimated in the NFL because it's a big boy league now. Like you might have been calling plays in college, but these are grown men right now. So ease him in. I like the idea, but his rookie season right now, off the jump, his quarterback and defense, I don't agree with it.
All right, I'm cool with that. So you had a chance. Now he had a chance to explain yourself. So that makes a little bit more sense. Like, I got you. Okay. All right, let me pass the mic over to Tony. What are your thoughts? Are there any concern for Jamin Davis right now? Do you think, are you kind of taking a wait and see approach? Where are you at?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think it is very early, and there's a lot of merit in what Trevor's just said there, and I think that from what I can gather, they are deliberately trying to put a lot on his plate. They're playing him in the middle, they're playing him in the in the mic at the moment, so he's having to learn the whole defense, and he's having to call the plays, and he's having to get used to everything. So I think in that first game, and some of the reports from training camp that he's having to process a lot of information, and at the moment he's having to think too much and not play downhill, which isn't what you want from your middle linebacker. Now, I read a good article by Mark Bullock this week who was saying that he thinks that by the season opener that he will have switched to the weak side, which obviously is a little bit less to focus on. But I think that the emphasis was in training camp, because I think they believe that he can handle the load at middle linebacker. It may take him some time, and obviously, he did look a little bit at times at the first game, a couple of plays that Mark Bullock highlighted actually in his article, where the pulling guard got around and reached the next level and cut him off, where he looked like he was slow to react, and that possibly is because he's thinking too much. So at the moment, he's not up to game speed, probably. I think that's it, because of the processing. But I'm not too concerned about that. If they're trying to teach him all that, and then they're going to move him to Will for the first game, put Bostic back in to call the signals, and just let Davis go out and play a little bit more, rather than having to worry about calling all the signals, then I'm fine with that. So yeah, look, possibly not as concerned as Trevor, but I think that you need a little bit of time.
Hey man, I'm I just, and then the other side of my argument is too, like you said, maybe Tony, maybe they're just doing this to see what he can handle in the game time situation with all this new role, and then just moving back to where he's supposed to be right now. Maybe this is just like a test for him to see. So that's probably a counterpart to my argument.
Maybe I think that perhaps they want to play him in the mic, long term. But I think at least to begin with, and you can do that in training camp, you can do that in the preseason to kind of give him that apprenticeship, if you like, in the role. But when the real bullets are going to start flying in September, it might not be such a bad thing to just move him out to the Will to begin with, and let Bostic call the signals. I think what will be interesting is, when we go down to two linebackers and we're out the base defense. Which I think the stats say was like 65% of the time last year. Who the two will be. I mean, you have to assume Davis will be one because of his coverage ability and his sideline to sideline speed. So Holcomb's coming through well in camp, and Bostic obviously is the main signal caller. So we don't have the greatest depth. I agree with Trevor on that, but I think when we get down to two linebackers, it'll be interesting to see the combination.
Yeah, I'm kind of so this is where I'm at with Davis, right? I definitely see him as a project. I see him as a worthy project, actually, right? So I think with Jack Del Rio and Ron Rivera, they do see him. They see like the projection with him. Walking away, he had a 9.93 relative athletic score, running a 4.4 40 and a 42-inch vert. And that's at 6'3" and 234 pounds. Like, I know he, to be honest, if you want to be critical of his first game, I agree to that, right? I watched him. And my big fear with him was he kind of got washed up in the mix. And when I say that, what that means is when he's coming in as a linebacker, like running downhill to fill the gaps, linemen were getting on him and kind of sticking to him so he couldn't release and get off the running backs down. So that's definitely a concern, because a true middle linebacker should be able to shed that block and get the running back in the backfield. But he definitely was struggling with that. And part of that is because he is kind of a slighter linebacker. Like, even though he's kind of packed thick, he is kind of slight. He's not necessarily a big, heavy, burrowing running linebacker. He's more of like a speed and read and react kind of guy, right? So we have that there. But I think he can evolve to it. I think once his mind catches up to his body, I think he'll be able to read and react and get downhill faster. Yeah. I guess you guys are right. So that's funny Mark Bullock said that, because I didn't catch that. And I was kind of spitballing on the fantasy football intervention pod with my boy, What's Gibbs FF. He's a great guy, Ryan. And I was kind of talking. I was like, you know what? I wouldn't be surprised if this experiment was on purpose, right? Like, they're going to put Jamin Davis in that middle linebacker, like fill his cup, give him all the information that they can early on in training camp, and to see what he can retain. And Ron Rivera even said he was retaining information pretty well. Yeah. So I think like he's picking up the information, but it's like, we'll see what happens, right? If he can rise to the occasion, like, 3 weeks from now, he will be middle linebacker 1. Worst case scenario, we had that safety valve with John Bostic, who was our incumbent middle linebacker. He could slide in there and put Davis at will and let this guy just read and react and just ball out. So I don't think it's a bad investment. I think with a player like this, you have 5 years, with that rookie contract plus that 5th-year option, you have 5 years to develop this really interesting prospect. And I'm looking forward to him. And I'm really I think he'll do okay. So I'm going to take a wait and see approach. It's not alarm fire like Trevor Stories right now. Just kidding, Trevor. we're basically going to see how that goes.
I think you kind of hope with Rivera and Del Rio as well as former linebackers that they kind of know what they're looking for as well. And I think that they clearly picked Davis for a specific role, because I think at that time in the draft, obviously everybody was talking about Owusu Koromoa. I think was Zaven Collins still available?
Yeah.
Zaven Collins still available.
I think Collins was gone. I think Collins
just gone at that point.
He went to the Cardinals already.
He went to Arizona, didn't he? Yeah.
But Jeremiah was actually still available. He went to the second round. So I think we could have had him the second time around, didn't we? I could be wrong, but I thought we could have walked away with Davis and Joke, but we decided to kind of balance it out with Cosme. So
But I think that they were clear in what they wanted with Davis. So I think that you have to assume that there is a plan that's going to sort of evolve.
Definitely agree. All right, so let's move on to our second and last question, right? So we talked about Jamin Davis's growth. We talked about wanting to see more from him. What other interesting prospect, could be a veteran, could be a rookie, whatever you want, the floor is yours. Which other prospect, which other player do you want to see develop or see more from moving forward in our second preseason game? I'll throw it over to Tony.
Ooh, there's a couple of potential ones, but I think I'll go with Diami Brown to start with.
Cool.
Because I think at the moment that Curtis Samuel is obviously off the PUP list now, and he's practicing, but he's not practicing with the team much yet, so he's obviously not going to figure certainly this week, which should mean that Brown's going to get a good opportunity. You'd imagine that the starters are going to play a little bit longer this week. I think last week he had a couple of catches for not a great deal. I think it was 2 for 16. So it'll be interesting to see how they use him, whether they try and move him around a little bit, and whether he gets more involved. I mean, a couple of catches is a nice enough sort of solid start, but it'll be interesting to see if he catches fire with, say, maybe a full half's worth of action. And if he does that, I mean, Terry looked fantastic last week. Humphreys was pretty solid in the slot. You have to hope that Samuel is going to come back, because he knows the offense, that he will hopefully come in fairly seamlessly. That if Brown can contribute straight away, it's going to bode well for the offense. So yeah, he'd be my one for this week.
Cool, thank you, Tony. And we're going to do one more question for Trevor, because I know he's actually going to walk over to the Ref the District podcast. This guy's a busy man over here. Trevor,
man in demand.
Man in demand. So Trevor, before you walk out the door, let me know. So who are you looking forward to? Who are you looking forward to kind of hitting that next level next week?
I don't really know if it's a player. I maybe have a couple position groups. One, I want to see a kick returning game. Jared Patterson, he took reps in practice. I want to see what he's like in the game time situation with that, and some other rotational guys back there. And then who's going to solidify the defensive back group once our starters aren't there, especially in the cornerback position. Darryl Roberts, Torrey McTyer, Trapkey season is now a cornerback.
Oh my God.
Danny Johnson, Jimmy Moreland, and then safeties, Reeves, McCain. Well, McCain's probably there, but Reeves and I don't even know who other safeties are, but it's just I want to see who's going to solidify the back end group just in case they're called upon.
Our defensive backs definitely are top heavy, right? We're walking away with like William Jackson and Kendall Fuller, and we got Cameron Curl had a good year last year, but it's kind of an unknown behind them, right? If one of them goes down, who steps up and who's going to rise to the occasion. So it's definitely a very interesting battle. I'm actually going to jump onto mine. Trevor, if you want to stick around for it, you can. If you got to go, no worries. So it's all good.
Tony, nice to meet you, bro.
You too, Trevor.
I'll see you guys. Thank you.
Take care,
Trevor. All right, man. So for me, I would say Diami Brown was definitely an interesting one, Tony. I definitely thought that was going to be one of my options, but I won't dwell on that too much. The only thing I want to say about him is I want to see him more with the ones. I want to see him given a fair shake and a fair opportunity. We know what we got with McLaurin, so give McLaurin some reps. Move Diami Brown around. Like I want to see him explode. He actually had two catches for 16 yards last week, and I just want to see if he has that breakout speed. It's a big play. Just show me some encouraging signs so I can be confident with you moving forward. My other candidate that I do want to see develop just a little bit more, because he's very intriguing to me, is Benjamin St-Juste. I think he's very intriguing, and I want to see if we have the real deal. I do think that 6'3", 200-pound frame is very appealing. I think I actually heard today on, I believe, the Kime podcast that Rivera chose he basically selected William Jackson and Benjamin St-Juste with the intention of playing more man coverage. It actually was very important for them to develop that.
Yeah.
Yes, I didn't really, I kind of assumed that, or hey, I was curious, are we going to trend that way? But I didn't know that was a concerted effort this offseason to develop that more. And I think it makes sense, right? If you have William Jackson as if you have two press corners, and with this,
certainly for Jackson,
for sure. And then with this pass rush, that just kind of goes hand in hand, right? You basically you're going to disrupt the receiver, you're going to let the dogs loose, let them go after the quarterback, and basically create more disruption. So, the Bengals, they don't have Joe Burrow this week. He's actually going to be out. They're going to rest him and relax. It's probably a smart decision to keep him on the shelf with
he might start getting flashbacks as well.
Exactly right. It's a good point. And I think so. Brendan Allen's going to take the helm for the Bengals, but they have a pretty. They call them the Big Three in Cincinnati, and we'll see if it actually amounts to that. But they have Jamar Chase, Tyler Boyd, and T. Higgins. So it's going to be it's a good three, and it's going to be a nice fresh test for our defensive backs, regardless who plays quarterback. So I do want to see that.
Yeah, I think that's a good one. I mean, I think St-Juste obviously gives the opportunity if he can come in and contribute and start to move Fuller potentially inside a little bit. If he was an elite guy in the slot as well. So if we can get those three guys on the field, that's going to give us a real boost in terms of there's no weakness there really as far as I can see. All three of those guys, if they can play, and if St-Juste is up to the level, that's going to be a real bonus for the defense.
I agree. I definitely agree. I think Kendall Fuller is a versatile piece. I think he can play the slot. He can play at the boundary if he wanted to, or even at safety position. But I think he excelled the most. If I remember correctly, at PFF his best position was a slot. So we're playing all of our players at the best positions. That's only going to be an advantage for us moving forward. So definitely think that's a good thing. All right, let's bring it on home, Tony, with our very last question. I'm going to throw it over to you. So, tomorrow's a big game. I'm really excited. I'm actually going to go to the game. Really excited to go check it out. Which position? Yeah, you definitely have a home here, Tony. If you ever want to come by, check out the game, you're more than welcome.
I'll take you up on that one day.
100%, man. So, going back to it. So, which position battle do you find the most intriguing, and who are you rooting for in particular in that group?
Yeah, I think there are two or three. I think Trevor touched on a couple of them before he left. So I think for me, though, at the moment, the receiver group is still the most interesting, even though there's probably only one, possibly two slots to play for. I mean, I think that the first five are pretty much locked in with McLaurin, Samuel, Humphreys, Diami Brown, and probably Cam Sims. I think is as close to a lock as you're going to get. So, if we keep six receivers, then we're looking at anyone from Steve Sims Jr., DeAndre Carter, Dax Milne, and Antonio Gandy-Golden. So you've got four guys there who have all got a name as such, because they're all kind of figured. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens, because I think again, as Trevor touched on, the return game is going to be interesting because a few of those guys, I think Carter was probably a couple of weeks ago considered to be the lead horse in terms of the return, but they're going to give Patterson some looks as well in the return game apparently. So the return game could be the sort of the factor that divides them in the end. But I think Sims has had a good camp by all accounts. Milne also has had a good camp, but I would guess that they might be more inclined to try and stash him away if they can on the practice squad. I mean, Gandy-Golden is the subject of a lot of debate. I mean, there was the whole AGG Kelvin Harmon discussion for a while. Well, we kind of know how that one ended.
Exactly.
But AGG is not a lock either, so it could be that they both end up on the outside looking in. Obviously, again, he's got the advantage, I suppose, if you want to call it that, of being a Rivera selection last year in the fourth round. But I don't think that guarantees him anything. So, yeah, I think there's four guys for one, maybe two slots if they decide to go with seven. So it's going to be interesting because I don't imagine that Terry's going to play for that long, maybe a quarter or so. So I think a lot of these guys are going to get a good run against the Bengals. So it's an opportunity, if one of them balls out and knocks the socks off, then it might be the difference.
No question. I think the wide receiving, the debate, the big controversy of the season is very hotly contested. I think everybody's keeping their eye on that for sure. I'm trying to think about how they're going to frame and how are they going to put that group together, right? Are
Yeah,
they going to take the 6 best wide receivers that they possibly, the most talented guys of the group? Or are they going to kind of frame it more of like a basketball kind of a roster, right? You're going to have
yeah,
like 2 bigs and 3 littles or something like that. You're going to have some size guys and speed guys and kind of frame it that way. So it's definitely
absolutely. Yeah,
something. It's definitely something to keep an eye on. I do think AGG is kind of losing equity quickly. Like I think he was drafted by this group. Scott Turner was a big fan, from what I understand, but he just
okay.
hasn't produced much, and he's given every opportunity. And you gotta come, you gotta bring something to the table at some point. So I just
Yeah,
think we're losing something there. And I heard Dax Milne is actually coming on strong, and
yeah,
they view him as a true like development slot guy. Just so let's say Humphreys isn't necessarily bringing his A gamer gets hurt, Dax Milne can just basically jump on in, maybe even over Steve Sims, which is who's been coming on strong too.
yeah, maybe so.
To bring it on home for me, the linebacking group is very interesting. I know Trevor kind of mentioned it. We do have that front line group of like Jamin Davis and John Bostic and Cole Holcomb, but there really isn't much more behind that. That's kind of a
No,
concern for me. So I definitely want to see them thrive. I want to see, like, for me, one of my personal favorites on the team. I don't know why I just kind of have affection for Cole Holcomb, but I really do. I just kind of see him as an athletic guy. Just like he's a shade or two below Jamin Davis in terms of athleticism, but no one really even understands that. Like, he has a cool mullet. They don't really actually consider him as a
yeah,
true prospect. And I do think he can develop. And I think ideally Cole Holcomb and Jamin Davis would be your nickel linebackers, be those 2 guys behind that 5 offensive line
yeah,
defensive line or whatever we do. It's kind of, they're flexible and athletic enough to play defense. Behind that, it's very, it's nerve wracking. We have Jared Norris from San Francisco and David Mayo from the Giants, who are more special teams guys. And I
yeah.
don't really see them really contributing too much besides like, punt team and things of that nature. But I do have my eye on Kaliki Hudson because I do want to
Yeah.
see,
He was the one I was thinking of.
is he really going to do something special? Like, at Michigan, he's a smaller guy. Actually, when I saw him, to be honest with you, like he was kind of a blur in regard to my memory last year. I didn't really know where he was, how big he was, and things like that. And I saw him last week, and he's a small guy. Like I don't know if you caught that, but he's pretty small. He looks like almost like a cornerback or a safety, which he played in Michigan. But go ahead.
Yeah, they talked about playing him potentially in that sort of Buffalo nickel role that they were talking about, where I think Curl played quite a bit of last year, where it's almost that hybrid role.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that that could be an option for him there. And again, as you said, this week is going to be a good chance for him to get some game time to show what he can do. But the depth isn't great in there.
Yeah, 100%. So like as you mentioned, I just want to see where he will play. Is he a reasonable option at the will linebacker position? Or are they just going to throw him out creatively in a nickel? We'll see how that goes. So definitely something I keep an eye on. If our depth doesn't shine, I wouldn't be surprised if we added a veteran later on this offseason with a surprise cut. So
yeah, definitely an option.
Definitely an option. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to kind of wrap it up on that point. We basically thank you for joining us for this little 35-minute quick hitter in our first ever FPC podcast. Tony, where can they find you on Twitter, and what do you got upcoming? And with your news and media, what do you got going?
Well, I'm Twitter handle is on the screen there. It's at Tony J Wheat. Hopefully, going to be getting some articles out for Full Press Coverage Washington in the next few weeks to look at the final 53, and then we're going to start to look at the regular season. So looking forward to getting into the regular season now.
Oh, you're very good too.
Chargers first week up.
Exactly right, man. That's exactly right. So yeah, I'm definitely with you guys there. So you guys can find me at gcarmy21. I also write for Full Press Coverage. Today I put up a stock up, stock down on 6 players for the Washington football team. Make sure to check it out, and make sure to check out some of our roundtables where me, Tony, and Trevor will jump in on some hot topics in the Washington football world and kind of talk about what we are seeing there. So guys, thank you for joining us. Pleasure to have you guys. Looking forward to interacting with you with future chats and upcoming Washington football podcasts. So have a great night, everyone. Take care.
Cheers, guys.